All right. So how you been, brother?
Good. I'm good. Just busy trying to multitask. Um, Very thankful that I've had a lot of things to keep me busy while we're sort of in this lockdown, social distancing sort of stage. Well, I guess not lockdown, but we're expecting maybe a second lockdown, right? I mean, it looks like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, other countries have been going into a lockdown and things are spiking. The interesting thing is today I was hearing how, since the White House took control of the COVID information from the hospitals, they haven't been releasing it. And so people have been sort of like listening to the hospitals in order to calculate how many cases they are and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, the hospitals seem to be in a panic. And one thing that I was talking to my wife today about because we wanted to go. My daughter, she's just about to turn a year in December,
Wow.
and it's a big thing. We want to dress her up and take her out and go to pumpkin patch and all that stuff. But also just when I get in arguments with people about sometimes I get people that give me conspiracy theories and whatever everybody's belief is fine with me.
Yeah.
But when I start giving my opinion, I always say, okay, this is my opinion about what's going on. Mind you, I'm the same guy who ate a bag of hot Cheetos and then went to the bathroom. So I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer. So I'm not going to listen to my instincts.
Yeah.
As Bill Burr says, let's listen to the eggheads. Let's listen to the guys who we used to copy off of when we were in high school, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's funny that you brought that up because just today I was commenting because I saw it yesterday, but Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
huge platform. He goes on, posts a video. I didn't see the full video, but I read what he wrote about it. But it was with Bill Gates and how 80% of the vaccine tests like weren't going right and all that other kind of bullshit. And he was like, "Oh, Alex Jones said this," and it just confirms it. Alex Jones got the craziest shit. Like I listened to that dude 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right when he started with the last financial crisis thing,
Yeah.
and and Joe Rogan is just like giving him his platform for him to for people more people to listen to him. And the thing is anything that you're talking to me right now about vaccines, back in March and in April, they said very clearly it takes 12 to 18 months at the minimum to get a vaccine. 8 months later, they're talking, oh, vaccines don't work because you're rushing it.
Well,
You know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
No, we got beautiful vaccines. We got beautiful
Yeah.
vaccines. We got Operation Warp Speed, and they're gonna be around the corner, and they're coming out. I mean, yeah, bullshit, man. Like we all know. We all
Yeah.
know, and let's look at what other countries are. What's happening in other countries? Other countries are shutting down again.
Yeah.
And what are we, untouchable?
Yeah. Well, not just that, but on that point also about the vaccines is uh I can't remember the names of them right now, but some of the pharmaceuticals pulled out because they were like, we're not gonna rush it and be that brand that people remember that fucked up the vaccine. Like, like
Yeah.
it gave people some crazy shit, and now the anti-vaxxers call it the confirmation of you see, I told you. And it's
Well,
like, man, you're rushing it. It's just like anything else.
you can do that with anything else. Exactly. I don't
So
know. I'm stuck because okay, so a little bit about me. When I was in
yeah,
when I
yeah, I wanted to get into that. First off, like before you get into that,
okay, go ahead.
are you from Southern California? Are
I'm
you
from Orange County.
Orange County?
I am from the red blip
Oh shit!
in Southern California. As Gustavo Arellano says, you can have the most fresh off the boat immigrant come in and start living in Orange County. All of a sudden, they're Republican. So
Yeah,
I'm writing that line. I'm writing that line where sometimes I want to teeter, but then I remember. I was talking to my cousin who's also from Orange County, and he was telling me, "Man, Donald Trump's gonna win, huh?" And I go, I don't know. Why do you say that? He's like, oh, all my homies are like posting like pro Trump stuff. And I'm like, well, all of our homies are like from Orange County. I'm like, there's a whole universe outside of this. So that's one of the things. But early in my life, I started to travel. I've lived in Texas.
Oh,
I lived in outside of Austin. Actually, in Georgetown. I lived in Georgetown.
yeah. Okay.
Um, they have a Walmart.
You have it. Yeah, I know. It makes it official.
Yeah. So I lived there because I was training for boxing. So I when lived in Georgetown, my dad felt it would be good for me to go live somewhere where there's nothing.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It's beautiful. It's just there wasn't much to do. But I lived in Georgetown. I lived in Atlanta for a long time. For a short stint in Arizona. For about 4 years in New York. So I don't really consider myself from anywhere. I kind of just float around.
Yeah. I love Atlanta.
Oh, dude, I love Atlanta. I think I think that that's probably where I'll end up moving. I don't know. I'm kind of bouncing around everything. My wife and I were like New Mexico, Arizona. I don't know, Atlanta. I don't.
Yeah.
Everybody's
It's
kind of exodus right now.
yeah. I mean, all those places are so interesting. I mean, and in New York, it's this incredible international city, and in Atlanta is this. I don't know when you were there, but I mean, for quite a while now, it's been this up and coming city with incredible culture.
Mhm.
And then you were in the part of Texas to where pretty much like Texas is once you get past San Antonio, there's nothing out there. And Austin and San Antonio are, so close together
Yeah.
that like you were in that part once it gets into
Oh,
no
it's
man's land.
no man's land.
So
Yeah. I loved it. I would just get up early in the morning and go jogging and then come back home and eat eggs and then go to the boxing gym. That's all I did.
so you
Uh,
trained amateur or you trained pro?
I was training for pro, but I took a step back and realized how uh, realized what my life would be. I was always going to have this rich person kind of controlling what I have to do, who I have to fight, all of that stuff. And and that could be the same thing for any job.
Yeah.
Um,
Some
but uh,
have
but I wanted to, I want to feel independent.
yeah.
And I didn't feel that when I was playing or when I was boxing or in professional sports in general. You're always kind of tied to something. I would imagine.
Yeah, especially with boxing. I mean, I grew up in Puerto Rico and that there were two things there when it came to sports. There was baseball
Yeah.
and there was boxing.
Yeah.
And so I didn't like baseball.
Yeah.
So I went with the boxing. And the thing is there were a couple of people in the neighborhood that, were pro level athletes, but they wouldn't commit to it.
Yeah.
And the thing is when you look at who makes it in that type of sport in a combat sport, tends to be people that come from pretty hardcore environments, and so the structure that you're talking about tends to keep some people out of trouble. And
Yes.
that's for those that choose it is like, well, this is the only thing that's going to keep me from just spiraling out of control.
Yeah. For me, it was sort of that, but I always had, I think a lot of people would say the tyranny of will, of not letting the fact that I am a high school dropout, not letting the fact that the neighborhood where I grew up in, I never wanted to let that get in my way. And so through sheer tyranny of will, I've been able to get to a different level that I think that a lot of people who have the same upbringing as me would have. But with that, when I was training, I was talking to this rich lawyer who was just doing it to work out. And he looked at me and he's like, Gilbert, you're so articulate and you're such a nice person. I hope you stop boxing before that changes. And that always stuck in my head a little bit. And then I also seen some of the same people that were in the weight class that I was, same upbringing, go on to be champion of the world, fight in Germany and all of this stuff. And then still like be driving around in a little, hoopty car. And so like that was heartbreaking for me. So I'm like, you know what? Like it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem
Damn.
like you get a fair shot. And you give everything. And I
Yeah.
had a resentment for people who would watch boxing and fighting sports and would like yell and like throw beer. I actually, when I was growing up, I had a Pinocchio moment. You know, like when Pinocchio's going through the circus and like there's these big monsters coming down and going and smoking
Yeah.
cigars and shit. I had one of those moments, and this is why I don't like Las Vegas. Not like the people in the actual space, but just the experience that I had in Las Vegas. Or I don't often drink beer because I just remember the smell of beer, the smell of cigars, and then like these big men like yelling and screaming and
Oh, wow.
cussing out this person who's going through war
Yeah.
on a stage. So for me, it just didn't make sense. I don't know. I sometimes I get lost in my head, but I came to the conclusion that it doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's war for entertainment, right? And it's
Yeah.
it's war against two individuals, so it's at a small enough scale. But you're right. I mean, it sounds like you saw, you knew what the sacrifice was, and the people that you knew weren't getting the spoils of war.
Well, also in my family, Juan Manuel Marquez, who is like other than Julio Cesar Chavez, like the Mexican fighter, and Canelo is like the new generation. But
Yeah,
Juan Manuel Marquez, the guy who knocked out Manny Pacquiao,
yeah,
used to sleep on a bunk bed with me in Anaheim when he would fight at the Arrowhead Pond. So I seen how it could catapult into something beautiful where he's
yeah,
like on speed stick commercials in Mexico City and like all of this beautiful stuff. So I seen that, but I didn't want to risk it, I guess.
yeah. It's a tough choice because it seems like, like most of these guys end up having just a one track mind because it's a lot of beating that you're taking. And
Yeah,
the guys that are smart enough usually have a high level of talent to where they know how not to get hit,
yeah,
and that's very, 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 very few
yeah,
fighters. And because I love the sport, and like I said, I grew up with it, and you have to be mean.
yeah,
It's like you could be like a nice guy because it's like you have two speeds.
yeah,
You're either a really nice guy or you're beating the shit out of somebody.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I
so whenever you're kind of in the middle, you have more range.
yeah,
I think, at least the people that I knew, it just like you were more adept to living a normal life. And
yeah.
normal meaning you just go out there and you do what you want to do
I
with
just
your
don't have
life,
that. I just don't have that anger in me.
right? And you got to have it.
You gotta have something, whether it's like your father like pushing you to no end where you resent him and carry that anger, because he's your trainer into the ring and stuff like. I never really I kind of had it. I kind of had it nice. Had a good family, relatively. So I never really had that anger that would push me, I think, to be as aggressive and uh, as a great a warrior as some of the people who are out there and professional doing this. So I was able to be pragmatic, take a step back, and say, you know what, not for me. And I started bartending, and that was sort of my transition because I wanted to become a chef. Because so like you see that the personality starts to come out where like I'm doing this boxing stuff and it's like one of these things that came natural, but I didn't have that in me. I was always more of a creative, and so I wanted to become a chef, but obviously never happened because I didn't have money to go to these chefing schools, and I didn't know that you could do it by just starting off as a busboy or whatever, like
Yeah.
some very famous chefs. I always felt like you had to go and get schooling and stuff like that because that's what they teach you.
Yeah. 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 And a lot of the guys that you talk to in the kitchen usually do go to culinary school. Um, that's interesting because lately a lot of the people that I know that went to culinary school are end up bartending.
Yeah,
because it's just better money.
it's
But
great.
the funny thing is studies have shown that and this is like taking it a little bit step further, but people that have that tend to be alcoholics also have also the same that tend to be thrill seekers.
Yeah.
So you're boxing, and I'm not saying you're an alcoholic, but I'm saying like the people.
You wouldn't be wrong if you did.
Listen, and I'll be, and this is talking about myself,
Yeah,
more than anything. From my experience, is sort of like you push yourself to those limits,
yeah,
oftentimes, and they found that genetically they tend to be the same people, and not just alcoholics, but actually addiction
yeah,
in general is just that you find a different way to get there whenever you become a thrill seeker. So
yeah,
people that are like bungee jumping, base jumpers, all those extreme sports tend to be the same. So there's a healthy way of doing it, and then there's the and then there's the other one.
That's the other one. So
it, but
for me,
I think that what we do also is we learn how to throw the party for everybody.
yeah, entertaining and hosting is definitely part of it. Um, for me, it's always been, for me, I've always looked at it as like something that creatives do, or definitely someone who's always in their head.
Yeah,
It is because I do feel like when I drink mezcal, it kind of opens up. Some people do the mushroom thing and microdose and that type of thing, and I'm not saying that I don't, but it's not my go-to. It's not my go-to. Definitely drinking a little bit of mezcal, and there's people who smoke weed, but for me, there's something about the liquid of mezcal that kind of opens up my creativity, and also like I'm able to channel. Uh, uh, it may sound weird, but my ancestors, and for me, it was always a very cerebral thing, rather than like seeking the thrill. Because if you know me on a personal level, on Instagram and sort of a peripheral level, I think that people may have one impression of me.
yeah.
But if you know me on a personal level, I am a homebody, I am a shut-in, and I am very, very. I'm a bore, but I think it was something about the mezcal that allowed me to push myself towards being a little bit more of an extrovert. I guess that's the good way, or that's the nice way of saying that. This is liquid courage.
I I don't think that people that are homebodies necessarily are boring. It's just that they're a different type of fun.
Yeah,
And like you said, it tends to be more cerebral.
yeah,
Whenever you notice, well, whenever you have the courage to work on weaknesses, let's say things that maybe standing in front of a crowd is not your thing. Well, bartending seems to be a thing that a lot of people use for that, right?
yeah,
A profession that you can get paid while you're working on these skills that don't come natural.
mhm,
Um, and so I usually think those make the most fun people in those situations
yeah,
because you have so much to offer in the moment.
yeah.
But it's not like you can do it all day every time they see you. Like there's some people that every time you see them, they
On.
crack you up, right? They're on. Yeah, they're fun to be around. That's their energy. And I think then there's the others that you get inside your head and whatever. And to get away from your head, you want to be in the middle of a crowd and you let loose, and so you're
Yeah.
just as fun. It's just in a completely different way.
Yeah, it's funny because I guess I would equate myself to like the really good waiter who is at the table and says, that we have this panna cotta with blah 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 blah, and if there's anything that you need, I'm 100% there for you. How are you guys doing? Oh, don't worry about it. I'm gonna comp this glass, and then walks through the kitchen doors and goes, motherfucker, shit, shit. so so I definitely have that duality.
Yeah, and for this type of job, you have to, because
Yeah,
for me, you know how people bring their personal life to work. For me, work was the way to just get away from that for a little while.
exactly. I've
It
heard.
was gonna be there. It's just let me just get away from it, take care of some shit, take care of some bills, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
While I'm at it, and then
Yeah,
I'm
I like
gonna
to
go
bring
and
my
handle it.
baggage to work. No, you don't want to do that. But knowing that balance, because there's nothing worse than working with someone who brings their personal baggage to work. You
Yeah,
know,
and it happens, but when it's every time, every shift, it becomes a thing. It's like, okay, you
right?
either
At this
lacking
point, it's not me, it's you.
yeah, yeah, because it's like you either lacking maturity or your life is a mess,
Yeah,
and you need to focus on that, you know,
yeah. And
rather than to just go out there and let it out for everyone else to know all your business.
and I was raised by two Mexican immigrants um, who knew the value of a dollar and the value of being in the United States, the work that it took to be here, the work that it takes to stay here and survive. And I was, now I think we're a little bit more in touch with the importance of taking, mental breaks and self care. We know that now.
Yeah.
I know that now. And I do think it's important. I think it's important for companies to know that importance. But I don't ever see myself. I could probably never see myself, just because of the way I was raised, going to my boss and saying that's not, within my pay grade and I can't do that. I've always
Yeah.
been can do, and I think that that was just a product of my parents. They went through hell to get here, and what
Yeah.
am I going to do? Take a mental health break. Nothing that There's nothing wrong with that, absolutely. And there's often been times where I should have done that, but just the way I was raised, I just can't get through that. I can't get
Well,
to that level.
yeah, and plus, I mean, you were pursuing a profession where that doesn't exist.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like you train, you train, you train, and then there's fight day, and
Yeah.
that's all there's to it. That's just the way it go. On that day, it's fight day, so it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how you're feeling
But
or
for everything I've done, I mean, even bartending, there's been a bunch of times when I didn't want to go into my shift, and I didn't feel necessarily joyful or wanted to talk to people, but I knew how to switch that off and kind of because hospitality, right?
yeah.
It's not about our problems. We're there to take care of other people, which I've also talked to. Had conversations with Ashton Berry,
Uh-huh.
who talks about the importance of body and mind budgeting, body budgeting, I guess, because
Okay.
when you're often pushing, yourself away, then it can take an incredible toll on your body. And I've gone through that, but there's something just about the way that we're raised that just doesn't let us snap out of it and get into that next level where we can. I don't know. Maybe I got to go to
It's
counseling.
yeah. Well, yeah. You and me both. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, right.
the entire industry, man, is
We do.
in
Yeah.
need of counseling. But
Put
I
everybody
think
in front of us.
I think that it's cultural though. I mean, that's it's this hemisphere
Yeah.
has this thing about work, work, work. I mean, you look at Europe and they understand the value, and they're just as productive, right?
That's
And
yep.
so it proves that it is not about just work hard without any breaks. It's like you work hard, but you need those breaks in order to recharge. I mean, think about, and I'm sure everyone in the industry in particular can relate, which is that first week after COVID or the second week, when you got caught up on sleep, whenever you suddenly stopped worrying about, am I going to pick up this shift? Now, for some people, depending on how and that's another problem we have in the industry, which is you spend the cash as you earn it. So I'm sure there are people stress on that. But if you had a couple of months of rent,
Yeah.
then it becomes this thing to where you're like, holy shit. I mean, at least for me, it was because I was, opened a bar in last July,
Yeah.
and it was go, go, go. I did bar five in January, and I did the work study. So that was an insane week. Come back on February thinking I'm going to have a break, and it was busy. And so whenever this happened, it took me 2 weeks of sleep before I woke up one day, and I'm like, wow, there's that guy again.
Yeah.
That is not
Yeah.
just the worker bee.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's really harsh on the mental state because it buries who you really are because you have to be on.
it does. And I look at my cell phone every day, and even through this COVID thing, uh, look at my cell phone every day and realize, I have. Yeah, you can't see it. It's too bright. Let me see it. Let me put it all the way down.
Yeah.
Uh, I have 252,
Wow.
and you know what? It's not work. It's my friends. That's one thing that I wish I could be better at is keeping up with my friends, because I think that that's what suffers. Obviously, when you're work, your work doesn't suffer,
Right.
but someone has to suffer when you're
Yeah,
one
you're
track.
taking it away from something,
Yeah,
from someone.
yeah. So I wish I could, I could, but and sometimes we take it for granted. You're like, well, I'll see them next week or whatever. But what if you don't?
You know what has worked for me at times, and it's something that I go in and out of, but something that I want to be able to do every day. It's just an hour a day,
Yeah,
just 1 hour dedicated to that one thing that you've been neglecting.
yeah,
And it's amazing what you realize that you can get done and how it makes you feel with just 1 hour a day.
yeah,
It's amazing, and it's a discipline that, like I said, I wish I did it every single day. I don't, but
yeah,
every time that I do, it's like, wow, so that got done,
yeah,
or I was able to talk. And sometimes you think it's like, oh, I'll just hit up and talk to a few of my friends. You end up talking an hour with just one friend, but
yeah.
is you're like, wow, okay, that was way more satisfying than I had
That's
realized, and how much they needed it, as well as I.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. Sometimes that spontaneous call could mean the world to someone.
Yeah, yeah. So uh, you have all these hats right behind you, and you always wear a hat.
Yeah,
I see that you work on these yourself, right?
yeah,
Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, how did that? Because that's a craft in itself.
yep,
Um, and so, what is that all about?
yeah. So I have a small brand, family owned, called Pachuco Supply, um, and we make custom hats completely from scratch, 100%. So there's a difference between a hat designer and a hatter. A hatter is someone who makes the hat and sells it. A hat designer is someone who buys something from wherever and then
Oh,
puts the ribbons and the accents and the color scheme and all that stuff together. No, I make the hats completely from scratch, and that sort of came from working with Ilegal. I would travel to Oaxaca a lot, and I met a hatter in Oaxaca. I started buying, a couple of his hats that he had that he wasn't going to use because they were slightly damaged or whatever, and I would fix them up and then sell them. Um, but eventually, I just because of my personality figured I can make this from scratch. Why am I, going to one person and then going to another person? And I was like, let's cut all the middlemen. I'll do everything myself. Because that's my downfall, I guess.
it's your DNA. It's in your DNA, man, to make it
Do
from
all of it
scratch.
myself. So I learned how to make these hats, and I started designing them and started incorporating some of the skills of my wife. Was an incredible artist. She's from Puebla. She was raised in New York, Puebla, York. So I make all of the hats and design them, and she adds branding to them
Wow.
by hand, sort of like a tattoo type of thing. And we've
So
been doing this for a couple of years, almost like 4 years.
so what is branding? Is that like
Yeah, so like essentially like a soldering iron, like a hot iron, shaped like a pen, and then just burning into it and creating these details.
so she's drawing with essentially with an iron?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's
wow.
it's I guess the best way or the closest thing to equate it to is like tattooing, because I
Yeah.
mean replacing skin for hair. because this is rabbit hair.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's very cool, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
That is for real, like a family business right there.
Yeah, 100%. So it's my my wife and I and my cousin. It's just us three, and we started we started in a small apartment in Borough Park, New York, Brooklyn, actually.
Okay.
We were just I had a small table and 5 or 6 hats that I was making. I started making them for my friends and some of my coworkers, and they became popular, and now we have a whole website and the whole thing. So
Wow,
I'm
that's
going.
great.
Yep.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, because I saw I'd seen you always with the hat,
Yeah.
and then I would see your videos, like you would post on Instagram or some of the photos, and I thought you were bringing them from Mexico, or that this was
I was at first.
yeah.
Uh, I was at first, and then so that's now like one of the things that I tell people, like, no, 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 no. I actually trust me. I make them 100% here by myself. But yeah, that's one of the things that I think can get lost in translation is when I first started for the first couple months. I was bringing hats that were already made, and I was designing them. But just again, my personality, wasn't going to let that be the end of it. I decided to start sourcing uh, rabbit felt, rabbit fur felt from, I believe it's the Czech Republic, and started bringing that stuff down directly. It's just it basically is just a hood of fabric, and then we block them. I'll actually show you. Right here. So
So
what
are
we
they always rabbit?
there's also beaver and there's wool. There's also some vegan options. But for me, the rabbit has always been very sacred to me. My father passed away. His name, they used to call him Conejo. I
Gotcha.
guess because he used to run really fast. I don't know what he was running from, but and so one of the first tattoos that I got to as a memorial tattoo was a rabbit right here, and that was it was a memorial for my father. So I always use rabbit, and we use something like this. This is a wooden block. It's a vintage wooden block. This is actually one of the first tools that I got from the hatter in Oaxaca.
Okay.
I was out there. I was visiting some mezcal production. Actually, La Locura mezcal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was visiting La Locura mezcal, and I knew another guy. So my friend Oaxaquin, he's got a blog about lifestyle and culture of Oaxaca. Took me to this hatter, and he actually gave me my first tool. And so what we do is we get
Wow.
the raw fabric and we put it over this thing, and that makes it the shape. And then we put all the creases and all the bells and whistles, all that stuff on it. But yeah, 100% made by us.
Wow, man, that's very cool, man. That like I said, that's a craft in itself right there.
Yeah,
That's
yeah, and that's another reason why I have so many gray hairs.
all right. So tell me, I see you have the skull there behind you.
Yeah.
What kind of Halloween traditions do you have?
I don't.
Ah,
I don't. I don't have many. Shit, man. I am actually the worst with this. With tradition,
yeah.
I don't have many. Holidays. I guess I'm such a pessimist that I'm always looking for something negative about the holiday. I'm like, well, Thanksgiving, the Christopher Columbus and the smallpox blanket. So, so I always, it's one of those things. Valentine's Day was created by,
By merchants.
yeah. So, yeah, much to the chagrin of my wife, she does celebrate those things. So I think as I raise my daughter, I'll start to develop um, some of those traditions. But for me personally, I never had really any tradition for dressing up or anything like that. It was always one of those things that um, a normal Halloween uh, would be like me, force to put on a costume because for whatever reason I wasn't working a shift. Unless I was working a shift at a bar,
Yeah.
then I would be there. But if it wasn't, I would be forced to put on a costume and go out with my friends, and we were single, and just be at one bar. And it was kind of like the How I Met Your Mother episode where they're like New York, or I mean, I'm sorry, New Year, and they're just trying to go to, oh, this party's better, this party's better, this party's better, and at the end of the night, like I didn't do shit. So
That sounds
for
about
me,
right.
that's why when I try to celebrate holidays, I kind of just do it at home. My wife just asked me, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" And I was like,
Uh-huh.
I want to stay home. I want to stay home. I don't want to have to get dressed up. I don't want to have to go to a restaurant and host a dinner. I just want to stay home. Uh,
Yeah. I mean,
I'm telling you, I'm a bore.
I don't know. I mean, I'm the same way. I guess that's why I don't think that it's a bore, because if I have a couple of people over, we always have a good time
Yeah,
because I make sure that I have something to eat.
yeah,
Whatever it depends, heavy or light, it doesn't matter.
yeah,
Sit around. I got a bunch of booze. It's like you can drink anything from this side over here,
yeah,
and it ends up being a tasting,
yeah,
right? Because I don't drink that heavy anymore, and
yeah.
I've made a lot of bad decisions in that
Who
state,
has-
and so I like to have tasting. So normally, what I'll do is like, oh, have you ever, did you like that? Here, try this, and I just take them, whether it's from just a whiskey tasting, or if they like a specific whiskey, I pull out some mezcal. It's like, all right, let's see what you think of that. All right, now let's take you to Scotch. It's like, let's finish off with some rum.
Yeah,
And at the end of it is like in intertwined with whatever conversation we're having.
yeah,
It's a little bit about, oh, this rum is from wherever it is, and this mezcal is produced this way, and this,
yeah,
and so it may sound like a bore to the people that just want to get shit faced and go and hit as many places and have
yeah,
as many selfies as they can.
yeah,
But that's not how I grew up. I mean, I was already a grown ass man whenever selfies got started. I was a painter, and so I knew it as self portraits.
yeah.
All the great photographers prior to 2000, and painters, portraits, self portraits.
I was I basically grew up around my older brothers who were about 10 years older than me,
Ah, there it is.
and my cousin who was about 7 years older than me. So my whole upbringing was already that, while everybody was listening to, I don't know. I forget, like Nelly and stuff like that when I was growing up. I guess I was already listening to old school Wu-Tang Clan and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I always considered myself an old soul. So for celebration and those type of things, I guess it was always put into my head by the older people that were in my life that it was a waste of time, and so they convinced me. I don't know,
Yeah.
like going out for a Halloween party and stuff like that. um I don't know. I think that I think that I was too stuck in my head to go out to house parties and nightclubs and stuff like that. I wish I did. I wish I did, but I don't have regret for not, because
Right.
I have now. Obviously, now that I'm older, I've
Yeah.
gone to those things. I'm like, this is what I was missing out on. I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. No, I did, and rarely had a good time, because it,
Yeah,
it it didn't make any sense to me, right? And
yeah,
even the times that I got shit faced, it was like, okay, that was, I don't remember, or that was really stupid. So real quick, I think we're running out of time here on Zoom. Um, where can people find you?
yeah. So on Instagram, at Gilbert Mescal. And for Pachuco Supply, it's at Pachuco Supply. I am also the global brand ambassador for Ilegal Mezcal. So at Ilegal Mezcal, you can find all of the stuff that we're doing with our production, social media, and everything. Yeah, I wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, you do. It makes me want to wear hats. I'm not necessarily a hat person. I always leave them behind. I've bought a few and never use them, so I end
Yeah.
up giving them away. Ball
I
caps.
gave a lot of hats away when I was single. Now, I don't know why, but I'm able to hold on to them a lot longer.
Nice. Well, man, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you, man.
and we got to do this again for the for the holidays.
For the holidays,
Let's see if there's a whatever reason that it is that you can come up with for doing the holidays.
so for Halloween, I don't have many traditions, but today actually, up goes the altar for Dia de los Muertos.
The other, yeah,
Yeah, so
Sunday.
yeah, Halloween wasn't really necessarily a holiday for me, but uh, for Dia de los Muertos, I'm putting up an altar for my father, who passed on. It was a lot of influence for me, and so that's what I would consider, I guess, tradition.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, for I guess now people are calling them corporate holidays. I don't really do much.
What about Thanksgiving?
um, no, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. Um, my, you know what I will do? I will go to my cousin's house and have dinner with her. Um,
Well,
I
and
guess,
that's the reason I asked is because it's like the whole country shuts down for that
yeah,
weekend.
I mean that's fine.
And so you usually end up going and doing something
The
because of it,
thing
not
is,
the celebration.
the thing is that I guess you can't not celebrate it, right? You're
Right,
kind of forced to.
right,
If the economy and if all of
right,
these things shut down, you're celebrating, right?
right.
The country is gonna celebrate, and it's a moving train, and it's happening around you. Nothing you can do about it. Um, I guess my own independent protest would be to be an earful to whatever cousin will have me, and say, well,
Yeah.
that Gonzalez or Rodriguez comes from Rahman, and like, so all of this stuff. So I'll use it as an excuse to talk to some of my family members about um, just different things that I guess I have, like different thorns I have in my side, which I, I
Oh
guess
well,
I'm
we
that
should
crazy uncle.
we can make that a whole episode.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I end up. This is just an eating holiday for me.
yeah.
Same thing.
What have so something I wanted to ask you actually, and I know we are running out of time, but something I wanted to ask you: what sort of feedback did you get about your post about media not paying attention to Latinx people as much as they are for other people?
Um, it was I don't know if you saw it, but I went back and forth with this one
Did-
dude that kept trying to justify it, but he didn't have a dog in the fight. So I understood why he didn't see it, but what ended up happening, he just wanted to impose his way. And really, it was a lot of support from the people that I know, because it's sort of like no one is saying that. And then from the other people, it always becomes, well, what are you complaining about nothing? And I think that we have that
Well, it's not
problem right
nothing.
now. Right, but exactly, but to the person, it's like a lot of times with female issues. A guy is like, yeah, but it doesn't really matter because you're making money, right? So if you have to wear a short, a low cut shirt, who cares? And that's just the mentality of the guy. If I could do it, I would do it. Not really having to live that.
No,
And
of course.
so it's the same thing with people when it comes to race. We could say the same thing. Oh, as a brown person, we get discriminated to a really dark skinned black person. It's like, yeah, but it's not the same, because I can pass. A lot of times when people hear me speak Spanish, they're like, oh, you speak really good English. Or when I tell them I grew up in Puerto Rico, it's like, you can speak really good English. And like, it's better than yours. What are you talking about? Right. And so it that's what I was seeing. But I what ended up happening is he wanted to impose that on the entire community.
Yeah.
And the
Well,
other
one
part.
thing that I seen that was really fucking annoying was, oh well, this person did more for the community than what we're doing, and I'm like, you. I was, I was gonna throw my cell phone up against the wall. I'm like, all right, self-preservation, motherfucker. Um,
Well, the thing about that is that what ends up happening is exactly what you said, right? Like people gravitate towards what they think is
I don't
appealing
want to throw
of
this person under the bus because they could give me a job in the future.
right. But what I'm saying is that the problem is the same thing that happens in restaurants and bars, right? If white people are the ones that are coming in and spending money, then and white people don't feel comfortable around Latinos, then they're gonna hire and not let in so many Latinos. They'll structure it's like, well, it's just business. Well, no, it goes beyond that because now it's culture,
Yeah.
and that's where the problem is. And it happens in Latinos too, where it's like, what's the gabacho doing over here? Right.
Yeah,
And then in
yeah,
certain
you're right.
black bars, like, is like, hey, it's you must have gotten off the wrong stop. It
I was so in Atlanta. I actually used to work in a place called Cafe Circa on Edgewood, and I guess people could call it a black bar, right?
Yeah.
It was a place that played jazz and all of that stuff. I've never been called white boy more in my life, and I'm like, no, I'm Mexican.
Yeah, no.
Talking about you're not Mexican. So I see that, but I also I don't know, man. I think it's a shame, and I think that the food media is complicit, like Gustavo even said,
Yeah.
in being lazy and telling the story. Because Rancho Grande in Providence, Rhode Island,
Uh-huh.
is a great mezcal bar ran by first generation Mexican Americans. And that could have been a great thing to do for Latinx Heritage Month.
They get lazy. Food writers are very lazy. Same thing. I've had that gripe here, and I've pointed out multiple times where they'll only do write about the people that have publicists. So in 2015, for instance, every list had the same 5, 6, 8 bartenders on
Mm.
it. Best bartender here, best bartender there. They all came from the same bar, right? And they were all the little cluster group, you know,
Yeah, because
the
there's
group of
there's
people.
little clicks.
Yeah, and so but they all shared publicists too. It was like maybe like two
Yeah.
people representing all of them. And so
Yes.
the food writers would just get lazy and they wouldn't really go out there and talk to people and do the thing that what the articles are supposed to be, which is discovery.
Hmm.
It's not discovery when your publicist friend brings it to you and just already digest it, you
Yeah.
know. And so I have issue with that, and I pointed out multiple times how I feel like we are the ones that need to do that kind of writing. Of course, it doesn't pay better than bartending, and then so if you're doing it while you're bartending, you're shooting yourself in the foot. So
Yeah, because
it's
it's that thing where you're like, oh well, this magazine needs to be better and it needs to have more brown voices, and for me, I'm like, well, fuck that. Like, let's tell our own story. Whenever you start having
right.
someone else telling your story, then you're subject to a lot of changes in what actually happened to.
You're right. You're subject to their interpretation of what you're saying, and their personal experiences are going to limit them.
Hmm.
And so I think it's always more pure. I mean, it is. I don't, we've seen it so many times that when stories are told from the source, they have a much bigger impact.
So from all of that pushback, from all of the pushback that we've seen, you and I, uh, do you think that things are going to change? Not immediately, but are things starting to change?
I'll tell you straight up what I think. I think what's happened in the last 4 years is very bad for us because, well, for us immigrants in particular, because I think they're using right now that they're getting all these celebrity, black celebrities,
Mm.
right, to go with the conservative side with Trump. They're a buffer for attacking immigrants, right? And so I think that the real battle is going to be liberal against conservative in a real sense. So it doesn't matter where you're from. That's why Lindsey Graham said it, and I've been using it a lot in the last couple of episodes. of my podcast, which he says it doesn't matter where you go in this state. He's talking about his home state, whether you're young, black, or immigrant, as long as you're conservative, not liberal. And so there's this hard
Hmm.
division, but I think the easy target is always immigrants. And I have had many experiences here and in California, because I lived in California back in the '90s too, which I noticed Orange County being conservative, like right off the bat, you know. And but I was I headed with this? Yeah, immigrants are going to be used as the target, and I think that that makes it very dangerous for us if we are blasé like we've been
Yeah.
for a long time as a group. I've always been outspoken. I've lost quite a few jobs, about half a dozen jobs in the restaurant and bar industry, for voicing my concerns on things where they just weren't having it, especially in the '90s and early 2000. Like it was really overt, and so, but I think that we have to be very diligent.
So, young bartenders who are listening to this, young people in the service industry that are listening to this, and bar owners, people who are also, I have friends who are immigrants whose status isn't even legal yet, and they're running bars and they're putting cocktail menus together and cocktail programs. Stand up for yourself, reach out and call shit out as you can, because it's
Well,
important that we start doing that, right?
we need to organize. I mean, there has to be an organized effort, right?
That was
So,
also one of the things, is like it is that whole old saying about crabs in a bucket.
yeah,
Everybody wants to be everybody in the cocktail world wants to be the only Mexican making mezcal cocktails.
right, right. And
No,
some people use that.
yeah,
They pin.
I'm the Mexican making mezcal cocktails. Write an article about me.
Right, right. And oh man, I got about an hour to talk about that, because I feel like sometimes some people, bartenders, get lost in that. They write one article about them and now it's like, oh, I made it. It
Yeah,
it feels good. Is I save them, right? Because my parents like to look at them. It's nice sometimes to look back at what the stuff you've done, but that's not the end all, right? To me, the end all is being able to walk anywhere in this country and not feel like I'm being watched, right? For one thing. Another thing, where people are talking loud because maybe he doesn't speak the language or some dumb shit like that. And so the the craziest things have happened to me, not very often, but they have often enough. And I used to respond with the higher ground, and then I decided to respond more directly. When people would say something stupid, I would just make sure that I highlighted that stupidity, and then let's move forward from there.
yeah,
So, but that's just me being me.
yeah. No.
And I think that it's just, we need to create an
What
idea.
is it, man? Is it Latinx Bartender Association? How is it that we're going to be able to get together and do what you're talking about? Because I know that there's some people that are trying, and they're kind of like mulling over the options of creating some sort of bartender thing, but they also don't want to be they don't want to be exclusive. They don't want to exclude anyone.
I'll
Uh,
tell you how you do that. We need to pursue an idea. So it doesn't matter who we're around. We don't need to be just like an exclusive club of just only the Latinos can come here. That could exist to a degree also, right? That can exist. But if we're pursuing an idea, even whenever we're amongst others, then we start to change people's minds. I don't like stereotypes. People try to give pin stereotypes of me. I immediately go towards it in the things that I say and do that are certainly going to shock them a bit, right? And sometimes it's just as simple as speaking Spanish. Sometimes it's using big words, that fucking $100 word. Sometimes is referencing.
we're gonna rectify the situation.
Yeah.
I was kidding. I was kidding.
But sometimes is referencing an idea or an author or something like that they they themselves can't grasp,
Yeah.
because I want to break that idea they have of me, that it's unfair. It's unfair to me. It's unfair to them,
Yeah.
right? In the sense that they're walking around the world. So, and I say that because most of the people that I've met that have that mentality have been open once I do that kind of stuff. Half of them have not. Half of them I just get mad.
I think that another part of that is getting Latinx bartenders to want to strive for a little bit more. One conversation that I had was a friend of mine who works for a large hospitality company in Los Angeles, and he's an immigrant, and he said I never wanted to become a bartender because I was scared of touching the money, and I was scared of touching the computer, and I didn't want to work on that. I didn't want to talk to the customer because I was scared. And I just and and I understand how someone can be an 11-year bar back, but but I told that person, but you are a badass fucking bartender, and you are an example, and you are someone who goes around the country and trains people now for this hospitality company.
Yeah.
And what was the difference between you and that 11-year barback? It's someone was pushing you to become the next thing, right? Or the next bartender. So I think that obviously people who are employers need to create that environment where they're pushing people to get a better position, which who knows if that'll happen. But also we need to be open and not afraid to touch the computer and
Yeah.
touch the money and talk to the customer.
That is cultural. That gets, we get taught that really early. Don't do those things because you don't want to get blamed for it.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you bring that out, because I've had multiple situations like that, to where I'll tell, I'll empower them, right? And then because the person touched the money, manager comes out and they're like, "Oh, well, you owe us." And I'm like, "Whoa, he touched the money, and so did he. So how do you know it was him?" That's the
Yeah.
reason why I say it, that I'm the one that
Yeah.
gets fired, or
Yeah.
put in that short list
Yeah.
really quick, because I was the one that would point that shit out. And I'm
Yeah.
talking about way before PC was
Yeah.
what it is today. And that's and you have to take that kind of stance. Like, you have to make that decision. That's why I feel like we have to pursue an idea. What is that idea? I'm not entirely sure yet, but it has to be something lofty, right? That we're constantly pursuing. And for that, they can't pigeonhole us, right? That's why I hate that Latinos are going for Trump. I understand conservatism, him not so much, right? Because
Yeah.
he embodies so many negative things.
Latinos do have some conservative values. My
Yeah.
family, the way I was raised, has some conservative values. But you're right. I don't understand the Trump thing.
And so I think that I fortunately I'm usually now in the position that I'm able to empower my staff, especially Latinos that have that kind of mentality. My bar backs, the guys that come in clean and they're like, "Oh, I'm just a lowly guy," and I'm like, "No, no, no, like come here, let's let's eat, and I'll do the little things, man, which is like I'll serve them.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, I'll open the beer and get handed to them. I'll serve them, and those little gestures, man, go a really long way, because it's like I said, it's we're taught to not get involved, because then we're gonna get blamed,
Yep. You just described my whole fucking upbringing.
right? Right?
No te
And
metas
so,
en lo que no te importa.
exacto, yeah, y así siempre, y eso es all Latino America. Like that
Yeah.
saying, any Latino understands exactly what it means, and they can hear it in their mother's
Oh
voice.
fuck. Yeah. There's that someone just posted the video of the old lady going, bueno, 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 ¿y tú por qué te metes en lo que no te importa? And I'm like, when I seen that, I was like, oh my God, that's my whole life. That's my whole childhood. It's like, yes, I'm not gonna, fuck it, like that's happening over there. I'm not gonna get involved. But no, we have to stick up for each other, right?
But listen, that's exactly the reason why we are second class citizens, right? We haven't gotten involved enough in this in the political climate because it's been always white and black going back and forth as far as I can remember,
Yeah,
right? And so we get caught in the middle because we could be blanquito, we could be negrito,
yeah,
we could be conservative, we could be liberal, and depending where people are coming from, they could be coming from a socialist country, they could be coming
yeah,
from a right wing dictatorship. So their values are can be extreme also, and so we don't get involved. And now here we are caught in the middle again.
yeah,
And we need to just really just put ourselves out there. And
yep.
it's not without risk. I'll say that.
And there's another saying that they say a lot in Mexico is "Pa qué te vas tan lejos?" You know, like why are you trying to reach? You know, like this shit starts with us here at home in our life and our job. So if we see this type of thing going on, like if I see this type of thing going on in the mezcal community, then I'm gonna start to speak up a little bit. And or if I see something going on in the bartending community, well then we're gonna have to say something. And that's what I want to encourage all of the younger dudes who are coming up because quickly we are getting more representation.
Yeah.
We are still very underrepresented, but it's getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that here's one thing for the younger bartenders is sometimes saying something, calling something out can easily start with a question. Because when you ask someone to justify what they just did that you see as being wrong to you or someone else, just asking that question suddenly makes it clear that what they did is obvious. Right? Now they have to justify it to themselves. And sometimes you'll be surprised how people can just completely change their tune in that they didn't even realize they were doing it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're gonna have people that are just gonna tell you to fuck off and mind your own business. But that's how you know who's who. But it starts with a question.
Yep.
Why'd you do that? Why'd you think they did it? How come he's always and I have that with bus boys too. It's like, oh, you be careful because we have cash, and it's like, yeah, he's been, and
Yeah, I know. I don't know.
I just saw these people walk back there,
Be
and
careful, he's brown.
yeah, brown and young, So it starts with a question a lot of times.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm glad we touched on that, man, because I think that that's really important. And in us, one of my for me, one of the most important things is to not become the one Mexican who's making mezcal cocktails, because I went through that when I first started bartending. I was like, oh no, like, oh, I'm not gonna teach them how to make that syrup and shit.
Yeah.
Like, fuck that, man. Like, I'm gonna put the syrup on Instagram and I'm gonna tell you exactly how to make it, because who cares? Because I'm more than one recipe,
exactly.
I'm more than one syrup. If we're worried about the person who's going to steal that one syrup, then shit, man, we have bigger problems. Let's help each other out. Let's repost. Oh, this vato over here is doing some fucking badass shit. Let's do that. And I think that that's going to help us out a lot too.
Well, and actually that brings up something else, which is when you hold back on that kind of stuff, and it people have different comfort levels, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, I used to do that too, because I also saw the people that were getting a lot of the attention stealing stuff from other people. But the thing is you also pigeonhole yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying like, I'm just this recipe now.
Yeah,
I'm just, and so once you start to think, it's
the
like,
only
no,
person who used tahine.
right. But even think about it, like it's like, okay, so I'm just gonna be doing that thing. What about becoming a brand ambassador? What about becoming a rep, or all the other alcohol, liquor?
You need more Mexican brand ambassadors for mezcal companies.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It's like it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It does not run on a handful of bartenders, right? It runs on a lot of different levels, and depending on what people are talented at, Is
Yeah,
that
you're not going to just be the bartender who's making the one great cocktail with that mezcal. There's a lot of things that you can do.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And so I think that that's whenever you hold back that tightly, you're holding yourself back and you pigeonhole yourself. You're just the Tajín guy. You know,
I was a Tajín guy for a while.
I'm the anti-Tajín guy. I'm like,
I know.
why? Everybody always asking me
I
for it.
worked I worked with a chef once, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna put some Tajín." They're like, "You're gonna do what?"
uh, yeah, I've gone through a range of styles in pursuing, like what is this all about, right?
Yeah,
And once you figure it out, you realize, well, shit. I mean, nobody can take it away at this point because it's a matter of understanding it, how
yeah.
simple it is. Understand
Uh,
the three ingredient cocktail and then add shit to it. It's that simple.
you know what? One of my favorite political cartoon artists, Lalo Alcaraz, in a conversation that I had with him yesterday, said specificity is universality. He only does Mexican American cartoons, right?
Okay.
And people would always push him to do stuff outside that, more Latino based stuff, blah blah blah. And every time he did that, it was a big flop. Every time he was very specific to what he is, it was a hit. And that's what I always tell some of the young bartenders out there is do exactly what you were raised on and what is you. Make me a Gilbert Marquez cocktail. Don't I'm gonna do a last word and I'm gonna get this tincture and blah blah blah. No, when I make a cocktail, I'm gonna get fucking what do they call them, masapan, and make an orgeat out of the masapan, and I'm
Oh
gonna mix it
wow.
with mezcal. That's what you're gonna do, and that is what's gonna make you go out to the other level, is just being very specific to who you are, because trying to be universal and trying to make everybody happy is futile, right? I
Yeah.
mean, how are you going to make everybody in the world happy? No, it's better to just have a little bit of fun and do something that is very, very important to you and very specific to who you are and your upbringing. I think that's the way to sort of represent yourself within the Latinx bartending culture, and still represent yourself.
I was watching Quentin Tarantino talk about directing and
Yeah,
and writing movies, and he says I guess he's talking to a crowd of students, and he's like, the movie that you think should have been made, you need to make it. Every time you look at a movie and you think it should have been done this way, well, you're the one who needs to write it, and you're the one who needs to make it,
yeah. Same.
because only you can tell that story from that angle, right? Because whenever you see something that reminds you, that relates to whatever the subject is, you see it specifically that way.
It's the same thing when people say liquor.com, you need to write more brown stories. It's like, well, just like, let's write our own stories.
Yeah, yeah. I think that starting to develop a media company that focuses on it.
A lot of
It's a
smart people out there in the liquor industry. Let's do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Well, we were supposed to be done about 45 minutes ago.
I know. I thought the Zoom was gonna cut us off. I was like, all right, it's
I'm glad I asked you that question, though, because I think that all of those things are important to say.
I believe that we're this is an important, not just election, but this is an important moment for the Latinos, because this is also an issue that, again, other communities, they're once or twice removed from their oppression, and I think Latinos are not whenever you're close to the community of immigrants. And frankly, what I'm starting to tell people now is, like, every single European in this country is an immigrant or descendant of an immigrant. So for them to start pointing fingers is bullshit, because there wasn't a single European in this continent just a few hundred years ago.
The First Nation.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, to come and start to oppress uh, first generation immigrants here, it's just an easy target, and that's what I'm saying. We have to make ourselves a much harder, much more difficult target than what we are right now. And by not getting involved, we're just making it way too easy.
Yeah.
And we need to somehow come up with the idea. It has to be an idea because the idea transcends everything. So
It's not one person. It's not one leader. It's the idea.
it is the idea. Yeah. I mean, Ruben Blades, if you ever listen to him, like that was his thing. And there's this incredible recording of some of his greatest hits from back in the 70s. And, he's, he always talks politics, and he makes that point pretty clear, is like, the human dies, but the idea doesn't. The idea persists. And that's critical.
Yep. Yep.
So, well, I'll be ordering a hat pretty soon. Probably end up giving it to my fiance.
Let's do it. that might happen too.
Yeah, because I'll wear it for a little bit, and then I'm like, well, because it's like, where am I gonna put it? And like, I don't have those manners.
My head.
Whenever I walk inside, like, I don't have those manners of like, But I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too, man. Gracias por todo. And honestly, I'm really happy to have done this. I'm really happy to know you and to follow you on social media, because I think that what you said and what you did when all of this started breaking was an inspiration for me, and also an inspiration for a lot of people. I do see a lot of people trying to step up their game and creating platforms. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah, I appreciate you acknowledging that. And I'll say one last thing on that is that, we've been really divided, and people have been driven by hate. And I say on both sides, because it's like people hate Trump. They want to vote him out, right? And my thing is, find a reason that you love to achieve the same objective, because it goes a lot further. And do it without judgment, because people are going to be more willing to listen, but you're going to have the energy and to be able to do it for a really long period of time. And we got a long road ahead.
Yeah, I mean, primero Dios, we're going to be living for a long time. So, why live with that hate?
Yeah.
Why live with that anger towards other people? I think that there is something important about contacting our relatives who are voting for Trump, or contacting our relatives who are doing certain things that we don't necessarily agree with, and have a conversation. Maybe not gonna convince them, but open up the table, sit down, and have dinner with them, or break bread with them, because that's more important than anything. I don't like Trump, but I don't hate Republicans. uh and
No,
so
I
I
mean,
think that that's where that like you get into that whataboutism of like, you don't like Donald Trump, well, what about Biden? I'm like, well, what the fuck about Biden? I mean, I don't know, I don't like Biden either, but I fucking voted for him. I don't like him. But
yeah,
I
but
just
he hasn't spent the entire campaign trail insulting people the way that it happened in 2015, right? And
yeah,
through 2016. So that's one aboutism
yeah,
on the other side. But I think that we need to find the reasons that inspire us the most to do the right thing,
yeah.
because otherwise we're going to burn ourselves out, and we're going to start making the wrong decisions.
Hate, stress, and all of this stuff, negative energy, causes cancer.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes the years away.
uh,
It takes the richness,
of life.
and talk about like resilient. How many immigrants, Latino immigrants, do you know that they don't make that much money? Their fucking job is hard. But you just catch them for 5 minutes in between something, and they'll crack a joke, or you can crack a joke and they'll laugh. They won't be bitter.
My dad would sleep through earthquakes and say, Si me muero, me muero. You know, like I'm good, I'm comfortable. Por fin estoy acostado. At the end of a long day, at least I'm laying down for a fucking little bit. There's a little earthquake going on around me. That's fine. If my dad was alive now, he would be like, es puro pinche pedo para pantallar a la gente. You know, it's all bullshit at the end of the day. Tomorrow, one thing is for sure, I'm gonna strap on my fucking construction boots and I'm gonna go to work. You know why? You know, let that. You know, I do think that being politically active and all of that stuff is very important. But at the end of the day, we're gonna wake up tomorrow and we're still gonna live life. Let's not hate each other.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like we have to make a stand at the same time.
Yeah,
We have to. I believe that is
such
better.
duality. Both things can be true.
Correct. Exactly. And that's it's a higher level of thinking,
Yeah,
and we need that in our community right now because it's like I can be an American through and through, and I can still be a Latino,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because it's again, I grew up in Puerto Rico. We're U.S. citizens. You know, we have that we made that deal. We paid in blood for that. So we have that. So my mentality was always like that.
yeah.
It was just that when I came here, that all of a sudden I couldn't be both to some people, right? Some
Well,
people
you're
were
from a
fine with
different
it.
country, right? You're from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, and people didn't even know where Puerto Rico is. These people didn't even know where Puerto Rico was. But it was like, no, you can't be both. And I'm like, yes, I can.
Yeah,
Right. And that duality, it's we have to it's innate in
yeah,
us, right? And
yeah.
so we have to just accept it, live it, and make sure that the people know it's their choice to accept it or not. I'm not going to force anybody to accept it, but I'm not going to hide it.
Yep.
You know?
Well, salute to that. Cheers.
Yeah. Well, I only got this.
Oh, the ginger shot. All right.
No CBD.
Oh, okay, okay. All right. Well, that works too.
Yeah. Started working out again, so it's like all the old muscles are creaking and need all the help I can get.
It's like an old house.
Yeah, I know exactly. That's exactly the way it is. You lay down and it's like, man, what's going on with
Man,
this?
you know, I used to love when I was young, and you know, you would put your shoulders on a desk and lean forward, and nothing would crack.
Uh,
Like now, I'm like,
Not anymore.
not
Yeah,
anymore.
or getting up from a chair and not having your knees make so much noise. And it's not just a crack; it's
Yeah,
a
we
lot of noise. Well, listen, man, we need to get together again, whether it's online, offline,
yep,
with this, and work on some ideas
yep,
to to just put out there
yep.
and see what works, but to start to organize something that is going to show what we're all about.
Absolutely, 100%. Count me in.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, David.
You have a great night, and we'll talk soon.
Gracias. Salud.
Gracias a ti. Igual.